Hi everyone, welcome to the first of a new installation of videos. I was thinking about all these foundations that I have and getting them together and comparing how long they last to see which ones last the longest, also to see how mattifying they are, how long it takes them to start breaking up or breaking down, things like that. So I am starting in this video with tinted moisturizers, then I'll work my way up to light coverage foundations, maybe break it up to medium and heavy coverage foundations, etc. So if you like this series and are interested in more like this, please give this video a thumbs up or let me know in the comment section below and I will keep doing them. So in this video, I'm going to go over all of the tinted moisturizers that I have, or tinted moisturizer type products that I have in my collection that are still available in the market for purchase by you. And I have a total of 9 of them. And here's the process that I went through. I applied each of these to my face, and I applied after washing my face, after putting on moisturizer, and after putting on sunscreen, because that would be my typical daily skincare routine or pre-makeup routine, and that's going to give me the most realistic view of how these work. I did not apply these over primer, so just to let you know, I also did not set these with any sort of powder because again, whatever powder you use will alter the wear and the amount of mattifying effect that you get. So there are some powders that some of you will use that will help to extend the matte finish for another hour, maybe up to 3 hours. It just is going to depend on what you use. So I didn't want to put that in the equation because that would sort of mess up the results. So these are applied over my regular moisturizers and sunscreen, which hopefully you're doing as part of your daytime skincare routine. And I went throughout the day and kept checking up on how it was wearing, whether I saw any sort of patchiness or fading. And I also checked on the level of shine that my skin developed throughout the day. And I would check every 2 hours or so, sometimes 1 hour. And I put them down all here on a list for you. So we're gonna go over the results. If you haven't checked out my latest video for going over what's new in beauty, there is a ton of new makeup that is featured in that video that has just released on the market, and some interesting things in addition. So please go check that out if you haven't seen it already, and of course subscribe to the channel. All right, so let's go 2 at a time. The one on this side here is the Neutrogena Healthy Skin Enhancer. This has an SPF of 20. This is a fantastic foundation if you want something to go outdoors with or want something when you go to exercise that isn't going to be like a heavy cakey foundation that's going to drip off of your face. The e.l.f. foundation serum has an SPF of 25 and is pretty comparable in terms of coverage. It doesn't have a high amount of coverage. It's very, very light. So starting with the Neutrogena Healthy Skin Enhancer. After 2 hours of wear, this showed slight signs of developing shininess or oiliness. Of course, if you're someone with dry skin and you don't develop any sort of shininess throughout the day, then your results will be different. But just know that I'm testing these with combination skin. After 4 hours, it was slightly more shiny than it was at 2 hours. So you're very gradually developing a sort of sheen with this product. But after 6 hours, it hadn't changed. So it's only gonna develop a little bit of shininess, but between 4 and 6 hours, it hadn't become any more shiny. And as with almost all of the ones, if not all of the tinted moisturizers I'm going to talk about in this video, in terms of fading or becoming patchy, because these are so light in coverage, I didn't see any noticeable or visible signs of any of these becoming patchy or fading off. I was so surprised at how long this item lasted on the skin. Even though this is a serum and even in texture it feels a little serumy or a little oily, this product doesn't develop any sort of shine. So in my notes here, after 2 hours, it is still the exact same finish. There's no additional shininess or oiliness. After 4 hours, it does develop a little bit of shininess, but that doesn't develop any further even after 6 or 8 hours of wear. So if you are actually someone with drier skin that needs something that is a little more nourishing, I would really recommend this, especially if you have the rare combination of dry and oily skin. This surprisingly stays matte for a very long time, or relatively matte for a very long time, and yet has that serum quality that some people are looking for in their tinted moisturizer. Now remember, these two have virtually no coverage. So again, you're not going to really see them break down throughout the day. Next up, we have on this side, Tarte's BB Tinted Treatment 12-Hour Primer. It has an SPF of 30. This, it says it's a primer. I don't know that it's really a primer. It is a tinted moisturizer. It does have a little more, I don't want to say oiliness, but that quality to it than some of the others. This is on this side, Paula's Choice is Barely There Sheer Matte Tint, also has an SPF of 30. So unlike the first two we talked about, this one does have very light but noticeable coverage to it. This one also has sheer coverage. I would say less noticeable than the Tarte one. So this one's more sheer, and the Tarte one has a more matte finish initially than the Paula's Choices. So for both of these, after 2 hours, there is a slight development of shininess or oiliness. But remember, because this one starts out more matte, this even at 2 hours appears a little less shiny than the Paula's Choice one. After about 3 hours, this one is slightly more shiny than it was at 2 hours. And the Paula's Choice one at 3 hours has developed a medium level of shine. So this one is getting more shiny at 3 hours than the Tarte one. And that stays consistent throughout the rest of the day. I should mention I only tested these for about 7 to 8 hours total. So there's not really any change between the 3 and the 8 hour mark. All right, let's test out some high-end tinted moisturizers. So on this side, we have Chantecaille's Just Skin Anti-Smog Tinted Moisturizer. This says it has an SPF of 15, but the ingredients do not make it clear what kind of sun protection there is in here, so do not rely on this at all for SPF protection because it may not be full spectrum protection. On this side, one of my favorite products of all time, the Laura Mercier Tinted Moisturizer. This has an SPF of 20. And I will mention that the Laura Mercier one, when you first apply it, it's very smooth on the skin, very lovely looking. So for both of these, after 2 hours of wear, I've written that there is a noticeable medium level of shine and there's no breakdown in the foundation. These are a little more heavy in coverage, although they're still light coverage compared to the ones that we've talked about so far. And after 4 hours, they are both pretty shiny on the skin. The Laura Mercier, at about 5 hours of wear, it's at its maximum level of shininess or oiliness. So if you are an oily skin girl or a combination skin girl, and you're not powdering, expect this to be at however your skin would maximally get oily at about 5 hours. The same is true of the Chantecaille one, but in addition, I did see the very slightest bit of this becoming a little patchy around the nose area here. Really not going to be that noticeable unless someone is really putting their nose in your face and looking at you up close, but just wanted you to know. And then again, at 6 hours, you're at your maximum level of oiliness. It's pretty darn oily, at least for my skin, but the Laura Mercier one doesn't break down or become patchy. All right, then we have NYC's Smooth Skin BB Cream. This is the instant matte version. And on this side, we have Maybelline's Dream Pure BB. And again, this is the matte one, and it has 2% salicylic acid in here. It's not the pink one. So this one has sheer coverage, and this one has very light coverage. So a little more coverage with this one, but you can barely tell. And both of these, I would say, start out immediately after application, just ever so slightly shiny. So after 2 hours, neither of these showed any sort of sign of change or any increase in the oiliness or shininess in the finish. After about 4 hours with the Maybelline one, it still was the exact same. After 4 hours with the NYC one, it was just ever so slightly more shiny. Then once we get at 5 hours, again, there was no change in the Maybelline one, but after 5 hours with the NYC, there was a medium level of shine to the skin, and that stayed consistent throughout the rest of the time that I was wearing this. And with 6 hours of wear, this was very slightly more shiny, but again, it stays pretty matte throughout the day. And last up is the newest addition to my tinted moisturizer collection. This is by CoverGirl. This is the Clean Matte BB Cream for oily skin. And this has light to sheer coverage, so more than, say, the Maybelline one or the NYC one. And it starts out with a naturally matte finish. So it's not as shiny as the Maybelline or NYC ones, but it's not super, super matte. This performs the best out of all of the ones that I've talked about, and it is my favorite one. After 6 hours of wear, there was a slight increase in the shininess or oiliness, but it took 6 hours to get there. Otherwise, you can rely on this to stay fairly matte throughout the day, even if you have shiny or oily skin, and to not break down. And only after 6 hours of wear does it really even just start to show an increase in shininess. So I would say overall, the best performing one is the CoverGirl one. And I guess the worst performing would be the Chantecaille one, because it's the only one that really showed any sort of breaking down. Although again, that was very slight. I really wouldn't say any of these perform poorly. If you care about that level of shininess, these two are the high-end ones, surprisingly, are the ones that developed the most shininess the most quickly. I would say followed by the Paula's Choices one. So this one is my favorite. The Laura Mercier is my favorite in terms of the finish. So if you're looking for something with light coverage that looks beautifully smooth on the skin and doesn't break down, but you also need it to stay matte, then I would say go ahead, use this and set it with a nice mattifying powder. Otherwise, if you don't want to spend that much, which is totally understandable, and you need a more matte finish and don't want to powder, then go with the CoverGirl one. All right, I hope this was interesting and helpful to some of you. Again, let me know if you want me to continue doing this series. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Very long palette that looks like this, and this is what the colors look like inside, and then you also get Profit, which is a loose pigment.